running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live, and he's back. Welcome back, BigBeat. How are you doing this morning, my friend?
Thanks, man. Look, the markets. I leave. Maybe I should just leave and then let the crypto markets just do its own thing when I'm gone, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess you can't yell at me. We hit 98 and the 100,000 mark. So am I off the hook for at least a week?
You're off the week. You're off the. You know, it's interesting when you first said it. I was like, yeah, I like that call. Because I'm bullish, right? And I'm very bullish. And I said it last week. I would not be short any place the crypto market. It's just there's the problem that I'm finding is liquidity, right? There just isn't a lot of crypto out there for being for sale, and the institutions are buying it up. And now you're starting to see some states are saying no, but some states are saying yes to having a crypto reserve as well as the U.S. government.
Yeah, how about Arizona flip-flopping after seeing that sort of hearing, the governor hearing from and saying, well, wait a second, both parties want this. Everybody's behind it.
Wait,
it was overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah, it overwhelmingly went through the House and the Senate of that state, and she vetoed it. She came back, changed her mind, especially after Sununu signed the bill into order into New Hampshire. So yeah, and that's what we said. It's going to be smaller. It isn't, if you're waiting for all the countries to jump in, we're still not there yet. But what's going to start to happen is pension funds have started to come in. We've seen that. We've seen, local, state, and, even smaller municipalities like Miami get involved. And that's what you're going to see. And yeah, they can't argue with it. Prices are just skyrocketing. And more exciting is a lot of the alts moving up tremendously too. Ethereum here at 23.45. Our man Aaron Schurz, definitely happy to hear that. Nice move up. I will say we're seeing a little bit of profit taken. Don't be surprised by that. And again, if you bought Bitcoin when it was down in the low 70s a month ago and you want to take profits, we do not think that's a bad idea.
Never a bad idea.
You said I wouldn't be shorting Bitcoin here, but I would see no problem with anybody taking profit. If you were one of those folks that have diamond hands and you bought in at 103 the first time and have been waiting for, the last 9 months for it to recover, feel free to lessen that load.
Yeah, but I don't like in the crypto space. I mean, I'm an accumulator, right? I like to accumulate and I like to sell things after I've accumulated and done my thing. And but I still have a specific level of which I want to continue to have, right? I don't want to just go, I want to sell everything, buy everything back, sell everything. I never do that, right? I always have my bag, and then I always have my trading account with, when I look at it from the side of saying, hey, I would like to accumulate more at this price, then I do that. And we did that, Howard. In the show, we did it actually at 72.2. And I thought that was a good place when the capitulation was happening. And here we are back above 100. We haven't seen this since February, I guess, right? And went to 100, 108, I think, at the time. I think we get back there, right? But I think you were talking about it best to me this morning about Kathy Woods getting called out about her call to $5 billion on Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's getting ridiculous at some points.
Yeah, 1.5. Her bullish case is $1.5 million, or 2.5, either 1.5 or $2.5 million a coin by 2030. Her base case is something like $250,000 a coin. I could see the $250,000 coming in by 2030 for sure. But she does point out good things that people don't realize. While you are still early to the race to accumulate Bitcoin, you are late to do it while Bitcoin is still being minted. There's only 1 million left. You know what I mean? Keep that in mind. There's only going to be 1 million, a little bit over 1 million more of them coming back in that are new.
it's so hard to make the last 500,000 coin. I mean, it's going to take better computers, and that's what we're saying. There's a liquidity crisis
power
happening.
and everything, absolutely,
Right.
that secures it and everything else. So that's important to keep in mind also. And with that, of course, all the crypto stocks just booming today. MSTR up another 1.78 after being up 5.58, back over almost 420 here. Coinbase up 5% yesterday. Maro 7%. So definitely a big day all around when it comes to that. Steve, we got to talk tariffs, right? We saw the agreement. I do think it boosted investor confidence. I did ask you before, how long do people actually read through it to see there isn't a lot of meat maybe on those bones?
Well, I don't, as you all know, I don't like to get too political because I like to stay in the middle, because that's just who I am. If you tell the American people this is what you're going to do it. Don't keep changing the goalposts, and we're seeing goalposts being changed on just about everything, including the Fed during the Wednesday meeting. I like the president's speech about it's going down to 80% because it was 150 or 60%. Then it went down to 120%, then 110%. Now we're down to 80%. 80% is a good place to be. Okay, well, at some point you got to hold this old say. This is what we're going to be at. I like the movement. I like the president's thought process here on this, but we can't continue to go and keep going, right? Because the ports in Los Angeles, we talked about this for 2 weeks now, are empty. Right? They're empty. And it's going to start hurting the American people very quickly, right? We're already seeing costs go way up already on some things. Some companies are already talking about they're preemptively raising tariffs because they're afraid of what's happening in the future. Business hates one thing, and that's uncertainty. They don't like uncertainty. So let's get back to basics and figure out this thing. I understand why he's doing it. Tariffs never have worked in history. They aren't working now. But if he's going to do this, if this is his play, he needs to do it and get it done. This is enough. Because I like it. You heard from CNBC this morning, Kevin Hassett said you're going to have a pretty good weekend. Navarro said the same thing. We're going to have a pretty good weekend, meaning he thinks that there'll be a lot of deals being done. Okay, then that's great. Then now you set the goalpost. Don't move it. Right? Tell us that's where we're at, and I think you'll see a lot more happiness.
Well, did they start to? Because that means, they sort of set goalposts. The UK is still going to have 10% tariffs on them. That's the low baseline.
And I'm posting it now where it says that the WTO spokesperson in the China-U.S. trade talks this weekend, right? So let's give them the weekend to make this talks. Look, it may not pan out. We understand that they're talks, but it's a lot different than it was a month ago, where it was like, let's just put $1 billion tariff on China and screw them, right? That's just no way to live, right? We need China stuff.
Well, but is there a difference with 80%? Are those boats going to get filled at 80%? I don't think they will not be.
No, they won't get filled. They won't get filled at 10%.
That's what I'm saying is when you read and break these things down and you say, okay, we have a trade deal with the UK. So what came out of it that was a benefit for the US yesterday?
But the United States also has a problem too. We have an addiction to these things, these products, right? We have addiction to cheap TV. As I said, cheap TVs and bad politicians. The United States is addicted to them, right? And it's true. And I love my cheap great
I'm
TV.
the king of it. You know me. I look at it and those are all things that worry me is there, if the baseline is that we're going to end up with a tariff of 10% across the board, that's still going to hurt, but we can work with that maybe. Does that 10% though move manufacturing back on board into the US, or is that a 10% price increase? 10% price increase.
10% price increase.
Right. Yeah. So, how long can we continue to be hit by price increases until we can't afford the products anymore? That's, the stage. You saw it. There's an all-time high of people buying their groceries with buy now, pay later. That scares the living what out of me. That is horrendous.
I think the biggest problem right now is delinquencies and payments.
That's what I'm saying. Well, but that's what they're getting to. That's what I mean. You keep adding all this together, and those cracks worry me more.
The buy now, pay later
more into the line of what Goldman Sachs analyst Jan Heitz has said, where You know, you won't see hard data that actually affects this for 60+ days.
That's right.
Due to
That's
the
we're in the recession
inventory
now. We're living through it, right? Look,
yeah.
When you look at, and I've always said that, right, is that when you, by the time you think you're in a recession, you're already in it, right? You don't really know that you're in the recession until you're in it, because the effects are so lagging.
By the time the Fed, their comment was, by the time the Fed gets their act together, we're going to need 200 basis points in cuts.
Yeah, that's right. And the Fed even said that on Wednesday, that they were, look, we are data dependent. Okay, well, how much more data do you need? They even told us the data that they were looking at, and we already see. They're like, wait, you just told us that the numbers are on a point. Well, guess what? People are losing their jobs. I don't, what do you mean data dependent? Again, as I said on Wednesday, moving the goalposts once again, right? And they changed their philosophy again. Oh, well, it's data dependent, and we have to do a mandate, but. No, there's no but here, right? You tell us what you're looking at. And it was interesting because Reuters, she asked the reporter, well, what data are you actually looking at? And he didn't answer the question.
He won't answer it. He
won't answer because he doesn't know the answer to it. He says, well, we have a lot.
Well, he knows the answer, but he's not sure of which one backs up today's story.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
Where Powell is careful is he won't say what he doesn't know. That's one thing that I think the markets have always liked about him. If he's got an uncertainty to an answer, he's not going to make it up. He's not one of those guys that flies by the seat of his pants sitting. Although they are flying by the seat of their pants.
He's not like Scott Bassett in front of the House committee and saying, I don't know who pays the bill on tariffs. Yeah, I do, Mr. Secretary. It's the American people.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to pay it, right? Yeah. Kremlin says Russia and U.S. discussed gas supply to Europe. So I think that the question mark around us and the USSR, and I say that tongue in cheek, is that we're talking again. So that's a really good thing. I know there's still more fighting in Ukraine, but this gas supply issue is a big problem to Europe. They got through it this winter, but they will not be able to get through it next winter if Kremlin and Moscow and Russia do turn off the nat gas spigot there. That's a problem, right? So we definitely not.
Yep. Absolutely.
Barkin says not a given that firms can raise prices on tariffs. What? Well,
he means that people won't buy it. I mean, that's what they're saying is that a lot of firms are talking about having to eat, and that's why we're seeing this. That's what Ford's saying, right? Ford's saying I can't go up in price. That's why I'm going to be hit with $1.5 billion in tariffs. Write-offs. It's because I can't take my car. I was watching, of all things, yesterday TikTok for a minute, and I love this guy, Bowtie car dealership guy. I don't even know what his actual thing is, but the guy's great. He's a Mercedes dealer, and he was talking about the moves that Stellantis made and how the car industry can't follow the mistakes they made in COVID. They made the Jeep Wrangler like a $70,000 vehicle. So they're now, as soon as you get them off the lot, they're worth like 50% of their value. So no one's buying them. And then if they have them, they're stuck in them. And this whole thing, like you're saying, delinquencies and all these things that, Ford can't sell an Escape for $70,000.
During the crisis in 2008, people were just throwing their keys at the front door and leaving, walking away. People throwing their keys at the car dealerships, just walking away.
There you go. I take it back. Right. Yeah. I mean,
I don't want to see that again. Right. Because if you look at it and say, okay, at what point did delinquencies hit a rate where people just are tired of paying and they're not going to do it? What was your thinking about it when you bought the $76,000 Jeep Wrangler, right? Did you just want it, and then now you don't want it because you don't want to pay because they don't have jobs? They're okay with paying it if they can afford it, right? It's all about whenever a person goes to a car dealership or buys a house, whether they can afford that payment monthly. We all know that. That's how it's when you sign up. Does the bank agrees to it? Because when it's okay paying the $80,000 if they're making $500,000, right? They're not paying $80,000. They're making
to this too, right? We talked about the president's break with GOP tradition, looking to give tax breaks to high earners and all that. But as I read more through that, the impacts that would come from that is the problem is then they spend less.
Well, you posted it here, the interest loophole. That is a big issue, and that's a Wall Street's lovable issue because they can carry that interest loophole. There's a carried interest, like what it costs, and then there's the top of interest, and then they can take that cost and defer it, and then that helps, right? If you don't do that, then you got to pay that bill now, and all of a sudden, the margins on your new Apple phone or Apple Watch and your brand new car, all of a sudden that margins get tighter and tighter. So no, I understand that. So yeah,
and then the bigger takeaway that I don't think a lot of people understand is what I'm putting up right now. You know that 90% of businesses are pass-through entities where the profits are taxed at the owner's individual rate.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, for all the NVIDIAs out there's 100,000 little Fat Pete's barbecues and, wherever that are businesses and that are taxed as a pass-through entity where that's the case. So, this could be critics arguing that raising personal income taxes could unintentionally raise taxes on millions of small businesses. These businesses employ 43% of the U.S. workforce, according to the Washington.
But I also think that those businesses should not be passing them through to their selves, right? That's how a lot of people have high net worth, and they are
LLCs.
cash poor, right? Totally understand that one. But Feds Williams now says the economy is currently in a good place.
Well, he's the only one.
Maybe it is for him. I think that's probably what he's trying. Yeah, must be nice to be able to say that when people are. I mean, I just saw another company losing their jobs this morning. It's at this point it's getting kind of crazy. But in his own same sentence goes on to say there is a lot of uncertainty around trade policy, right?
Steve, on good news that I know I want to talk to you about today, big oil eyes BP. BP shares jumped about 6% overnight as talk that Shell, Exxon, Chevron, and others could consider a takeover, and that Elliott Management's 5% stake that they have is adding pressure to this. Is this going to be the next mega merger?
Do you remember what you and I talked about back in January and February? I said it was going to be hot this year. It's mergers and acquisitions. And I've said this, I don't know how many times on the show, the price of oil being at $60 a barrel, it just dropped another $1 here a few minutes ago. Probably get back below the 60 handle. I've said that every time it gets below 60, it's always a buy because there's always the drillers can't handle it. That's what I'm saying. The drillers don't make good money at $60 a barrel, right? They make good money at 70, make terrible money at 100. Why? Oh, the oil's price is higher. No, because less people buy it, and they're not buying gasoline and all the other things because they always wait till it goes back down. So the Goldilocks is usually around $60, $61 a barrel. So when these companies get down here, they get hurt. They don't do well, and guess what?
They don't drill. Too.
That's right. They don't need to. And now you go in, you have these companies like Elliott Management and these firms, and they can put these big deals together and make one big company. And now you also in the past would not have done that in the previous administration because they don't like big
companies. And we all know that you need to have huge companies in the oil. The bigger, the better. You need to have that thing because it costs so much to drill to find it, and it costs so much to produce it and get it out of the ground.
That's right.
That you need to have that market share to be able to do it. Do you have your tinfoil hat around? Mine's not around today, but I've got one for you. Anne-Marie Baines, one of our favorite analysts that come on the show. I asked her because I've had my conspiracy hat on, thinking that maybe OPEC nations were using this as a punch to the Trump tariffs. She asked about what is the biggest component of the CPI. And I said, gas. And she said that she's hearing murmurs that the current administration not reloading the SPR, and that there are some people some puppet masters behind the scenes that are very happy in the U.S. with these lower oil prices, even though we are normally a loser because it costs more to get our suite than it does to get the others. What do you think with that?
Okay. Yes and no. I've known Anne-Marie Band a very long time. Currently in the SPR. For those of you who don't know, the SPR is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We dipped into it. The United States keeps lots and lots of barrels of oil in case something happens. Okay. Currently in there, and I think I made a post on it this morning. There's currently 390 million barrels, roughly, in the SPR. During the campaign, Trump said he wanted to fill it to the brim. Well, that's not really normal, right? Normally, it's about 790 million barrels it can handle, something between a little bit less and more depending on the day and the usage, right? Right now, we're about 55% full in the SPR. He has not put a single barrel back into the SPR. That's not taking any out. We don't need any out.
We haven't needed cheap oil. You don't need it.
Cheap oil, right? But we haven't put any in, right? When usually we should buy oil to put it in there during this cheap time. So right now, there's roughly about 355 million barrels, is a give or take a little bit. Okay. How much oil does the United States burn a day? And it's roughly 22 million barrels a day, right? Some days higher, some days lower. It can go between 19 and 25, but 22, right? Roughly 22 barrels a million barrels a day. Okay, and it also depends on how backed up the refineries are and that kind of thing. And right now, the refineries are backed up pretty heavily, right? There's a big backlog on refineries because we're making the switch to gas. Anyway, no, because this is why I'm saying no too as well, because at 20 million barrels a day, that's roughly 2 weeks. Right. So,
well, but she was more, it's not about the SPR, but using that as a sort of key indicator to show how
keeping the oil prices down, right?
Is okay with this lower oil price.
Everybody,
we don't move, no one moves the needle, not even the U.S. government, when it comes to buying oil, so to speak, because let's face it, it's in everything. As you've said, it's in everything.
Feds Williams now in Reykjavik saying that spending is holding up, but consumers are paring back. We've been talking about that for a long time.
How can spending be holding up if they're paring back? Isn't that an
I think what he's saying is what we've been saying, Howard, is that we're still spending, but
we're spending, but they're doing it out of credit, doing it on credit. Okay, that makes sense. I can live. Not that I can live with that, but that
don't like it.
Don't like it. Bit more sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but that's the problem, because we don't want to overconsent, because that takes you from stagflation to deflate to
right. All right, we got about 3 minutes or 7 minutes now to the open. Let's get to some of these stocks we've been talking about.
Sure, we definitely got a lot of stuff going on today. A lot of movers there. Enphase, one of the big winners so far, up 12.17% here.
And there's your answer right now, is renewable energy, right? We know that that's the case. We know that we're getting back to solar. The president, you know what? You know who makes good solar energy panels? 2 countries, United States and China.
Indonesia.
Indonesia's great at solar panels, but I think China makes them better.
Oh, do they? Okay. I didn't realize you would talk about that way. Yeah. But in general, we know that Enphase was Fast Solar, we got a big move up because of the tariffs, because most of the other countries were getting theirs out of Vietnam or Indonesia, and they are not. They reported their Q1 revenue, 356 million, non-GAAP gross margin of 48.9. And we see analysts are talking about Enphase focus on increasing battery efficiency and cost reductions. Some of the things you've been talking about, right? Make them better is the key. For a long time, it was really Tesla that was thought to be the leader when it came to the batteries, right? We haven't heard much about that lately. Another one nicely moving up today, Steve, is Paycom, Payc. They also another one that had they're up about 9%. Q1 2025 revenue increased to 531 million, 6% year-over-year growth. They beat their adjusted EPS, and they gave guidance to their range of 2 to 2.038 billion. Holding their estimates. People seem to be happy there. Steve, one that's making a nice little comeback that I still think might be a little overpriced. Palantir, nice little move up about 8% here. It got beat up after revenues.
I love Palantir at 30. I don't like it here anymore. I mean, look. I knew the reason about Palantir going, being over definitely underweight was because that they had all these government contracts, and we're pulling back a lot of those government contracts. But Palantir is one of those AI companies that the government has really relied on, especially in the military. And military is the only place where the president is upping the spend, right? And the whole part of Homeland Security. So This was an answer to me that I liked. But now I think it's overcooked a bit. The Palantir's numbers aren't matching the PE ratio now on Palantir is 380 something. I don't even remember now. It's like crazy. Okay, I'm okay with that because it's tech stock. I get it. But 380, I mean, that's not in the norm at all, right? Not even for tech stocks or not even for crazy tech stocks in the future. That's way, way, way overpriced. So I don't understand this. I think this is just retail going nuts and trying to buy things. So no, I don't really like this too much.
Yeah, I can't argue there. Another one getting beat up, Steve, and again, pointed a lot to the tariffs. Expedia down 16.99% here after their earnings. They're seeing downgrades across the board, and they basically said it. No one's coming to America.
Nope. I'll tell you something else. I was just flying. I was in Fort Lauderdale Airport, and on the way back, and I got checked for Department of Homeland Security. Checked me for whether I had a real ID.
Yeah, that's the thing. I saw some people that got put off planes for that, or weren't able to get on their planes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the states that are still not there yet. I should have looked at that this morning. Give me 1 second. Type this in here.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm looking at. Are we all happy about Nvidia now? Back to 117.60 now? I mean, I think so, right? We all got in at 105.
Well, not those that own it at 150 or 160.
No, of course not. But I mean, those of us who got back in at 105, I think we should all be happy.
Yeah,
right?
nah, I'm just joking. Yeah, still 5 states: Michigan, Minnesota, New York, Vermont, and Washington that do not even have the compliant IDs.
I think it's because of the border, correct? Is that right? I think they're concerned with the border getting through.
Yeah. So that's the real ID is interesting there. So getting back to Expedia though, downgraded to Piper Sandler underweight from neutral in a research note late Thursday. Commentary about inbound travel and the business to consumer business was discouraging and suggests a tough slog from here. Cruise operators and large U.S. carriers such as Delta and United have found strength during the earnings season, but most notably as outbound international and premium travel have remained robust. So what they're seeing is people are still buying those first-class seats and still traveling, but the back of the plane not as full. And what we're still seeing is people leaving the U.S. to go spend money overseas, but not that return of the international, traveler there. We are about 1 minute here. I'm going to get our charts on the screen here so we can watch the cues into the open. We'll say that so far, tick's been pretty good. Advanced decline sitting at about 2,000. That's come down a lot today. It was up a lot more earlier today. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for sure.
I mean, it is Friday. We're going to see some options moves here a little bit. Hey, if you're out there and you're watching us, throw some stocks at us. Also, make sure you hit that repost, that like button, smash it hard so that we can all get there. Let's get this thing over 1,000 again today. I appreciated all of that the other day. Retweet, get it out there. Let's get these numbers up. I love it. Okay, here we are in the first move here, and I don't believe the first move is always the right one. We all know that. So let's keep
usually first move is the wrong move. We're still not quite there yet. Still about to kick off. Hasn't kicked yet. We are open. Here we go. Qs are opening right about 490.36. Moving to the upside. 490.50 or so is the baseline of the cash market open. We want to keep an eye on. First move here slightly up. Tick did jump up about 250. Advanced decline popped to 31.67. Did make this new lovely screen that gives me both the tick, advanced declining 567.98 right here, 490 on the Qs. Has seen some analysts calling some pretty high side moves here on the short term on the Qs. I don't know that I'm buying it with them, but I have seen that from some folks. DXY back above 100, so it's got a chance to bake that weekly high. We're going to have Mr. Flanagan on here A little bit we'll ask him there, and we know that he's been focused on what happens here in the weekly close on the US dollar. I will say it has been retracing since about 10 p.m. It did hit a high last night on all of that great tariff talk of $100.85 before pulling back. 10-year 4.371, Steve. So down a little bit today versus yesterday, but still elevated there. Mag 7, let's get into there. We see NVIDIA down right about even so far. Big one of Tesla, man. Tesla looks like it wants to push to 300 here. So really nice pushback from that 220 area that it was at, you know, on those drops down here. Really nice pullback to the upside on Tesla. Netflix pretty flat. Mag 7 looks like it's trying to run here. Apple up nicely, trying to break that 200 spot. But I will point out, again, we've had some key spots that have been tough here. NVIDIA's had struggles getting above 118.50. Apple has had trouble staying above 200 here. Microsoft a little bit different because after their earnings, they took off. So I don't really have the same feeling there on Microsoft. Google, the other side too. We know they went down tremendously, hit that 149 target I talked about, and then moved back up. Amazon looking for a second straight move to the upside here, 193.41. Again, that 195 area has been really hard for Amazon to break through. Meta's struggled at that 610 area, traveling right around 603 right now. To me, their Meta is more bullish, staying above 600 than what I'm looking to the upside on. Anything there above 600 keeps me bullish. And like I said, Tesla, if it can break the 300 mark, watch out. And Netflix, that 1150 area seems to be the key zone to watch here today. As we switch over to the Spider Selects here, see what's happening. We do see mostly in the green. We do see XLREE, the real estate REITs that are slightly down here. We do see consumer staples slightly down, but the rest are in the green here. And energy really leading the way, up 1.04% here this morning.
I mean, energy is going to go up because of those M&A rumors, right? I like that. I've said that since the beginning, that M&A is going to be hot. If you keep oil at $60 a barrel, it's going to be really hot soon. You know, like, hey, I'd rather buy all these oil companies. This is a good time to do it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Tesla up 4% now. A lot of call buying going on in Tesla here.
Yeah, Apple up 1.43, broke that 200 I talked about. So we are seeing some nice little moves to strength there. So far, I'm liking the way the market's opening up and looking. We're up about a 0.5 percentage point on the Qs. So technology leading the way. But with that being said, SPY and RUT running right about the same at about 32 basis points. So both the big cap and the small cap moving up the same. Technology, like I said, leading the way. Gold at 33.37, up another percentage point here, Steve. And Bitcoin holding so far 103K. If you hold 103 here today, watch out above. We could try to set a new all-time high. Because I would expect to pull back towards that 100,000 support level.
And here's what's sneaking up on everybody. How about Boeing up to 194? I mean, Boeing's moving, right? I mean, and
that was the big. So that was my big win yesterday. If you're asking me, out of the tariffs, what was the win? I don't remember the number, but it's something like $2 billion in planes committed to by the UK government, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
That is a big move. So that was a for those asking, so Howard, you're Mr. Negative here that the tariff talk yesterday didn't do much. What are you positive about? That was by far the most positive part to me. I want
President Trump now
our planes and not Airbus, right? We want them to choose the U.S. over the EU in that case.
President Trump now on Truth Social now says costs are down, no inflation, very different from what the Fed and fake news media were hoping for. I hope I'm not fake news, Mr. President, because I don't think that I am. I'm pretty much calling it the way that it is. And he's right. Actually, I think he's right. I think inflation is down. It's coming down. It's not quite there, Mr. President. Yeah, I mean, things are happening, but people are losing jobs. So he's right. So there is a reason. There is a.
Well, again, is he? Because inflation's because of the front running. If you and I just said first thing this morning, there's going to be a 60-day lag till we see inflation. We can't turn around right now and say he's right.
I can say he's right.
Stick with it I got to hold you to something for at least an hour.
But let's listen. When he's talking about costs being down, costs are down. I mean, milk is not the crazy price that it was. Eggs are not where they were. And now I know there's some external issues with
eggs are totally
bird flu
different. So
and
is
stuff like
dairy.
that.
I mean, both of those were hit by regulatory
People
concerns.
don't care. People only care about the cost. They don't care about what things, you know, they don't care that those eggs are hit by bird flu.
But I've got to ask you a question, because even with gas at these prices, what I've noticed is we haven't gone below $3 here in Ohio, and we go down usually.
Yeah, you
like
know why? You know why? You know
price
why?
Gouging.
No, taxes. State taxes.
Well, no. Ohio, we have some of the lowest. That's what I'm saying, is we have some of the lowest gas prices, gas taxes, and gas prices usually in the country.
And oil companies, in this case, gas companies, that supply the actual gasoline when you pump it, they are using that as margin to get back to where they were, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not gouging, but they're holding it up because, there's no reason that when gas. I mean, we were just at $75 a barrel, and I was at $3 a gallon, and now.
But remember, oil is not basing on gasoline, right? That's based on production of it through the refineries,
the refineries and everything else. But they use, what's their base product they start with?
That's true. Yes, yeah.
One of those two. So petroleum. So I mean, if your number one thing. I will say also, I love what I'm seeing out of the Qs here. Broke through that resistance really nicely here on the short-term chart.
118 on
what I'm seeing right here. We look, like you said, looks like the algos combined with some short covering here could get a little squeeze going on the Qs. 63% to the up,
and 103.3 now on Bitcoin.
So I do love seeing that. I do love seeing this move by the Qs. Technology wants to run here this morning. Tick staying slightly positive. Steve, one thing that Anne-Marie talked about that you had been railing about, I just wanted to mention, was the refineries. That's where we should be spending our money. That's where the U.S. oil and gas companies and infrastructure money should be getting spent. And you've been railing about that, so I just wanted to mention that. Love seeing the VIX down at 22 here, everybody. Again, it just continues to slide. If we can get down below 20, look out above on the rest of the market. I will tell you that. Apple's struggling with that 200. So let's get back to the Mag 7 here, because I think it tells the story. Again, NVIDIA keeps trying to get above 118.50, keeps getting knocked down at that level right now. Apple 200 keeps getting knocked down at that level. Can one of these, again, Tesla, we talked about, it's up 4%, but it's got to break 300 here. Can any of these get above that key resistance today, Steve? Or do we continue to see us just tread water where we make these nice moves up, but they get sold off? It's the dip to rip to dip.
It's Friday. It's options day. Let's revisit this issue. Hey, Paul. Summer blends too. Yep, totally agree with that. If you don't know what he's meaning by Paul's meaning by that, we'll post it. Sorry, there you go. Paul is talking about the summer blends, which is like what we need in order to, less nat gas and more other heating. We don't need heating oil and things like that. So he's right. Summer blends is a very good point. Thanks for that. That's a good point, actually. 118.11 here, 118.12, 118.13, 14. It looks like we might have some short covering here going to close. That's what I'm saying. Let's look at the 2 o'clock options, when the Robinhoods and those things start pulling up some of their options. But we're now hearing that Pakistan's Air Force, more than 100 planes of Pakistan, India took part in a 1-hour air battle on Wednesday. We now know that, but now they're getting a little bit more data out of it now. So this is really heating up. We talked about it with Steve Flanagan, the Pakistan, Iran, India deal here. Over the week, during the Wednesday, I was gone, and Thursday, I had a chance to talk to friends of mine that are from India. They're very concerned. They think it might heat up. Now, remember, the border has always been a place when Kashmir has always been a hot place, but this one's a little bit different now. I think it's going to get worse. They need to talk.
It seems like there's some rhetoric coming out of China that's not helping matters from what I've seen.
No, of course not. China's taking Pakistan's side, by the way. So, yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a little choppy here. Gold 33.37 again. I saw over the Thursday, I guess it was, Peter Schiff going bang on Bitcoin, saying that we're all crazy for buying Bitcoin, and that it's the world is a bad place, and we should be buying Bitcoin or buying his gold.
Boomer says what?
What?
A boomer says what?
What?
Yeah, listen, I love Peter Thomas, but again, the same
no,
way
I mean,
that
Peter Schiff. Sorry, Peter Schiff.
Oh, Peter Schiff. I thought it was Peter
Right.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even more so, Peter Schiff's for clickbait. If it's Peter Thomas, I actually listen to him.
Yes, of course.
Because he actually knows what he's talking about. Peter Schiff is just he's a social
Tick is
media.
exploding upside here, up 200 here. Boom! Look at that.
Yeah, like I said, it looks like Tech wants to run us today. Tech wants to run.
You need to have. If you're out there and you're looking at charts, have Tick and linear regression together. It is giving you the answer right now. If you can explain that to them through your charts there, what I mean by that. But yeah, Tick pushing higher here.
I don't really. I look at Tick on a 1 minute, so I don't use linear that much on it personally. But this is the Tick here.
So my Tick's on a 1 minute chart, I
put a line right here, so I know where the central point is.
Yeah.
And I just watch it from that on the 1 minute. Because to me, the tick matters by the minute. I think anything over a minute on the tick doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't really matter. That's correct. Yeah. In fact, I like the 1 minute.
Steve, could you explain that? I bet you a lot of people, we talk about the tick all day long, and I bet you we've never explained it.
Oh, okay. It's up and down of the markets, right? It's how many upticks subtracted but divided by the downticks, right? So how many upticks and how many downticks. And if there's more positive, then that means more people are more bidders than there are
buys, right? And sell.
Yes, I know they match. I get all that, but the bidders are bidding it up, so the ticks are going up. So which stocks are going up? So they're adding them all in, and it's a cumulative of all the ticks. So I look at this because it's a quicker gauge than volatility. It's a quicker gauge than actual looking at QQQ or whatever. You can actually see all the markets like in one fell swoop. So tick is always, and the cumulative tick is what I like to look at.
Yeah, that's what I use. Yeah. And then and then the other one that we talk about all the time, but I don't know, I think we've explained this one a little bit better over the year, but advanced decline. And this is again where they take I have the one that's .us, so it's the entire market, all of the different US markets, and they take every stock there and they say how many are up today, how many are down today.
That's right. Yeah,
from each other, and this is the answer to that. So if 10,000 stocks are up and 13,000 stocks are down, then we have a negative 3,000 on the advanced decline. So we just talk about them like everybody knows what they are. So I do want to bring those out there, why those are important for us. And for those that don't know, let's go one further. What the VIX is, Steve. We talk about it all the time. You use, and there's multiple ways to look at the VIX. I personally use the VIX because I'm a cheapo, and it trades between 13 and 30. Steve, being the rich guy in the room, uses VXX, which normally trades between about 50 and 80.
Correct. Yeah, and look, for me, the VXX is much faster.
And it is. So Steve's is more EMA based and based on there. I'm looking at the total month when I look at mine.
Right.
He is weighted to the short-term futures as opposed to mine that are. My VIX takes the 30-day look of futures, what's going to move, what the expected volatility is over the next 30 days, whereas the short-term future gauges it more or weights things that happened in the last few days more than it does all 30 days.
Hey, we're closing on 1,000 views here. Let's get it over there. If you're not, hit that like button, but make sure you retweet us right now. We'll get it out there. Let's get over 1,000. We've got about 15 minutes or more till top of the hour.
We got Steve Flanagan coming in.
We got Steve Flanagan. So let's get that over 1,000. See if we can do it. Let's break it down, boys and girls. Right now, 103.3 now still on Bitcoin. I think we're very close here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If it, like I said, it holds here. Watch out. Watch out above, excuse me, if it holds. It changes. Give me 1 second here to change.
We're now on a 1 month high now on nat gas futures. We've talked about that. And I'll post it here too.
Steve, Trade Desk just took off up 23.61% here.
They're getting bought out here, probably. I'm telling you, this is M&A world. Let's see.
I don't see the news yet. Give me 1 second to pull it up here. No, this is earnings based. Buddy.
Yeah.
Wow. First quarter revenue surge. Shares of Trade Desk jumped. Stock up 14%. First quarter profit of $50.7 million, 10 cents a share, compared with $32 million or 6 cents a share last year. So 4-cent gain there and almost 28.
But remember, it is Q1 revenue. Remember, this is money probably coming in from the elections, right? If you don't know what Trade Desk does, they're advertising. The
only thing I'll say there is they're guiding for at least 682 million in revenue for the current quarter. That was right about at analyst estimates of 683.
Come on, Bitcoin. Let's go. 1035. Let's go. Let's get back to 104 there.
Yeah. But Trade Desk moving up today significantly there. What else is moving up so far? Lyft up 20% too today. Wow. Lyft is a big move on their earnings.
Coming in, millions of worth of NVIDIA call sleepers stepping in right now in NVIDIA. I've seen on the Cheddar Flow right now. That is very bullish. For those of you who don't know, call sweeps are where the orders are so big that they can't handle it all. Yep, we're seeing a little bit of a pop there in NVIDIA. That's a big flow there on Cheddar. If you don't know, Cheddar Flow follows sweeps. When the flow is so big, they had to break up the order. So that tells you a lot. 1035 now on Mr. Bitcoin there. Let's go.
Market technology taking off. Trade Desk 24%, Transmedics Group 22%, Lyft 20%, Insulet up 18%, Rumble up 15.18%. Microchip technology plus 11.5% here. Pony AI. We did see QBTS and the other AI names were moving up earlier this morning.
But AI is dead, Howard. AI is gone. We're not gonna look. I heard the same thing about the internet. The internet's a farce. No one uses it. No, what's it for? I get it. Here we are. AI is not AI. Just the most billions are being spent on AI to build, right? And some of them don't even know it was very funny. I was listening to my friend Anthony Scaramucci, Mooch. He was talking about it, that, back in the day when people were talking about AI at the beginning, what's it for? Why am I going to need this? I don't need this. I'm scared. I want to lose my job. It's the same talk that he had heard about the internet. I'm going to lose my job because of the internet. The internet has built jobs. It's made jobs. I can't even imagine not even having the internet in my house. I'm lost without it, right? And that's the world that we live in, right? That we get so addicted to something that we can't just live without it. Talk to me during hurricane season, right? It sucks. So I think that AI is in the first inning, and now you're seeing it. Some of these companies that are having to build, they can't build it fast enough, right? So yeah, I think 1036 now. Yeah, Howard, we're moving now.
Yeah, QBTS, which had earnings here, they were the ones that are pushing the AI through the roof today, up to 1070 here. They opened, that's a move from $8 to $10 here.
Hey, we're 140 away. Let's break the 1,000 handle here on the viewers now, Howard.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing with QBTS is they reported Q1 revenues of $15 million, a 509% increase year over year. They narrowed their loss from 17.3 million to 5.4 million, and they achieved a milestone in quantum supremacy with a peer-reviewed paper in Science. Secured a significant sale to Germany's supercomputing center. So lots of good news coming out of D-Wave. It had C3 AI. Let's see if they're still moving up. They were moving up tremendously also on those news. Yeah, up about 2% here, but a nice move up there. So AI again, Pony AI, like I just said, another one that's moving to the upside. That seems to be the one that moves the most right now. I've noticed Pony AI is the one that everyone seems to be in love with. And you can see up 8.25% here this morning.
And if you don't get it, let's get it. You need to subscribe to our newsletter. You go right on our website, quasarmarkets.com. You can click in there, subscribe to the newsletter. If you already have an account with Quasar, you'll get the newsletter. Because it's our band 103,700 now on Bitcoin. Let's go.
Yeah.
But in there, it's all AI. D-Wave Quantum was one of the big top movers of the day. You saw that numbers. And you saw where the Trump administration Gaza aid plan. You can see trending keywords, weather patterns, news, stock, and sports, all in one AI. And I'm hearing amazing things about how great that newsletter is. So I appreciate all of that out there. Get that newsletter. It comes out at 9:00 in the morning, so you're ahead of the game. We don't want to put it out earlier than that because we want you to know what's really going on, not just what happened overnight. and it's up to date. And if you miss any of the shows, it's actually at the bottom. All of our shows are taped here that are live. If you want to watch them live, but are taped, and you can actually rewatch it when you need to. So yeah. Oh, look at I love this. It's a nice move there on the Bitcoin there.
Yeah, 103, almost 6 here, moving to the upside, continuing to move. Did get hit with resistance right at that 103.705 area. Man, that crypto heat map is as green gets. Let me show you this one.
I mean, Ethereum is up almost 7.5%, almost 8% here. I mean, that's just,
it was up 15% yesterday. That's above.
And that's what we're saying, that Ethereum was not keeping up with Bitcoin right now. Now it's keeping up. But I think you gotta be careful, because there's going to be some dumping the miners, right? I mean, they're not going to just go, ooh, look at the price here. But I would not be negative on anything on crypto right now, right?
I wouldn't be shorting. No, I would not be shorting. Like I said, I have no problem with taking profits on things. You know, when you look and you see, like I said, Ethereum in the last 24 hours up 20.43%, and you don't take some profits, don't come looking at me later. That's all I'm going to say there. So I would be taking profit on some of these.
You don't think you think there'd be a big pullback? Is that what you're saying?
Not a huge pullback, but a pullback. When something goes up 20%, it usually pulls back, right? I mean, that's just the way things work. The gravity pulls it back on anything. I mean, a 20% gain in 24 hours. Again, I would never be against taking profit there. The problem with what you hear a lot of people talk about with Ethereum is, oh, I've got it staked. It's too hard. It's literally 2 clicks. You click once to unstake it, and you click it once to sell it. It isn't hard to do. That is a misnomer.
Now, that was the case back in the day when I didn't like staking things, but that's not the case
anymore.
They've
made it now. It's so much what I call crypto 2.0, which has been basically
400 right now.
Release of the ETFs. You know, that's changed. Everything has become much easier. They've improved their interfaces tremendously. They've made it easier. Like we used to say, you used to almost have to know how to code to trade crypto. Now all you got to be able to do is click a button. Steve, crypto is all green, but if we look here across stocks and equities, you know, you can see retail trade not doing quite as well. Consumer non-durable struggling here this morning for sure. We see, you know,
and everything on that screen we talked about, right? If you think about it, we've said Nike's up. We said that, right? We've said that these things are the things that people want quality. They're going back to quality. They are still spending, but they're not spending their money. They're spending their credit card money. But they are pulling back. But they're still spending. Does that make sense? Yeah, because that's even what the Fed was saying. Like, people are spending, but they're not spending their own money. But they are pulling back. What? They're looking for quality. And if you notice, all of this stuff that Howard is showing you is right on Quasar Markets platform. So again, free sign up. No reason not to sign up to see what we got over here. And it's only $15 a month, $14.99 a month if you want the no ads. And look at all this. Look at all the news that you get. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I've got up my Twitter news, my trading economics news, sports news, Saturn news. My favorite, the Quasar institutional news, because it shows me all the analyst price moves that I like to talk about here and do. Mosaic just raised the price target on CIBC from 32 to 33. Wheat and precious metals raised their price target to 105.
That's right.
You can see it all there. Akami lowered their price. You know, you can see it all here in front of us. Go Perkins Holdings price target raised from 5,600 to 6,100. Everything right here in front of you.
Yeah, and all you got to do is click the button for the institutional news. It's only a little bit of an upcharge because we're going to give you institutional news. People say, "Well, I want hard, straight data." There it is. Look at in the $15. We have Quasar Markets AI. We've actually got AI attached to databases. We've got AI itself. I mean, look at all the things that are going. There's a chart of unemployment. You can see on the right hand side of the AI how to actually see what other people are looking at on the left-hand side of his AI there. And it's what he's been asking. And in the middle of it down below is follow-up questions. Like, these are giving you better answers, better questions to ask, and giving you a better answer to a better question, right? That's the key to us to doing the efficiency. So much so that it's being patented. So
for instance, I asked it because I don't listen to Peter Schiff. I said, act as my research assistant and break down the advantages and disadvantages to investing and holding Bitcoin over gold from a short term, less than 1 year, midterm, 1 to 5 year, and long term over 5 years, include some compelling statements from both Bitcoin proponents and gold proponents, also include narrative on the price movement of both since Bitcoin's inception. And as you can see, in a matter of seconds, it breaks it down and says this is what the short-term advantages and disadvantages are, what the midterm advantages and disadvantages are, what the long-term advantages and disadvantages are. And then lastly, gives, like I said, the narrative behind it. I wanted to know, what are some gold proponents saying? What are some Bitcoin proponents saying? And then the other part that Steve points out a lot, that it makes ours a little bit different and really helps you, two parts. Number one, you want to see where they got that data. Here is exactly where that data came from. And number two, now that I have that data, it comes up and says some important stuff. You know, you might want to know, how have gold and Bitcoin compared since the major financial crisis in 2009? If you're worried about environmental impact, which we talk about, how do they compare? Because that's an interesting one.
Right.
You know, I'm going to ask that because everyone always talks about how bad it is to mine Bitcoin, but I know that it's going to come up and say that gold also has a lot of impacts, right? When you mine metals, we've seen talk about in Canada, their old gold ore mines in the northern part of the country are a big problem, because what they did is they froze everything that came out bad. They put it into the permafrost, and that permafrost is now defrosting. And there's a huge worry about the arsenic levels and stuff coming out of there that are deadly. Yeah, and this is how quick our AI works. Like I said, boom, right there. I keep everything again on one screen here. I'm able to quickly go through. I've got my heat maps. I've got all my news. I've got everything I need right here on one screen. I can set them up. I can separate. I like to separate. I have, these are just my two heat maps. I've moved back and forth between them very quickly, allows me to do everything here at Quasar Markets in a matter of seconds. And then when it does, nice little move up here, Steve, 103, 645, still continue to move to the upside. You know, if I want to get more data so I can see, you know, what is going on here with Meta, it's up 1.17. I click on it. It takes me right over to TradingView.
We love TradingView. They're our partner here too as well. We're partnered with over 300 companies. Can you believe that? We love it. We love what we're doing here, and we're growing and building. And I've just built a mind map for the next 5 years of this company. So I'm excited about what we're doing here at Quasar Market.
But again, all this off of one screen, where I used to have multiple screens up. It makes my life a lot easier, a lot quicker to do things, to get my
for
data,
15 bucks a month. My goodness.
You know, yeah. As I often say, the AI alone is worth twice that.
We have worked hard on that for sure.
Yeah. Tick's going slightly negative here, Steve. You've seen a little bit of profit taking.
A little bit, but we're back to 103.750 now, about to break 103.8 here. I'd like to see NVIDIA back over the 118 handle. I think that would make me happy here.
I'm with you there. I mean, I think the 120 is where it will separate itself. If it gets 120, it can start to hold that as there. I'm going to pull this off.
Tick back up again.
I see the man himself coming into the room. Stephen.
And I have a meeting at 10 o'clock, so I got to run. But let's bring him in. I got to run here. But Steve Flanagan, how are you, man?
I'm good, Steve. And wow, this India-Pakistan thing keeps us going to be on our toes for the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, air fights and things like that. This is actual war.
And make sure you keep your eyes on the sky, because a Soviet spacecraft from the 1970 Cosmos number 482 is falling back to Earth.
Yeah.
And nobody knows where it's going to land.
Yeah, I mean, we had
drop
that
it in the Kashmir area.
Yeah.
Blow them both up.
There's enough things to watch this weekend, so that just is another one, another shrimp on the barbie.
You got that tinfoil hat going today, Steve. See you later, Big Beat.
See you, Steve.
Mr. Flanagan, so how are you doing today, sir? DXY, let's get right into it, my friend. I'll pull it up here for us. I got to change my stuff here. Hold it once.
Yeah, this is what we talked about, Howard, and that's why I try to, relay, some of the institutional side, the little knickknacks that the hopefully, the Quasar Markets crowd can tie into. And every computer model in the world ties into a Friday close, because in the currency world, 5 p.m. Friday, everything ceases. So it is a definitive point to log into the models. Now, I mentioned right at the outset the geopolitics, another piece, India and Pakistan here. But understand, in the description is the world is underweight the US dollar to levels that we have not seen in ages. Probably since these computer models were started. So that is a toxic mix to the environment right now in the world of currencies, which in my case, money moves first, begins to tell me what is underlying with the U.S. markets. I said we needed a sprinkle of good news, UK and the United States trade deal. Okay, it wasn't my top pick, probably number 5 on my list,
but at least something.
It's something, yeah.
Although, I mean, but I have to ask you with that, are you nervous that now the baseline looks like it's going to be 10?
No, I think that the baseline all along has been telegraphed at 10. And, on that, I just look around and say, how much money has the Fed taken into its coffers with these tariffs? And it's a staggering amount. So, is that good news? I don't know. But certainly, getting 50, 60, 70 billion dollars so far into the U.S. Treasury in an effort to pay down debt, I don't see that as a bad thing for the United States.
Where did that money come from? I'm missing something here.
So I went in and used the AI feature and tapped in, how much has tariffs raised for the U.S. For the U.S. Treasury, and the number comes in around I think 55, 60 billion as of the latest data in May. So,
but that's because of the front run, right? I mean, that's the thing is, like you've said, like we've said, the rear view mirror is a tough thing to drive a car with. And, as Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan analysts have just come out in the last 2 days, and Bank of America analysts, and pointed out that there's a 60-day lag that we're going to see here until data actually catches up to what's going on. So my worry is, does that completely reverse over the next 60 days and we find out that isn't the case? Because we know nothing's coming into the U.S. right now. The ports are empty. There's a million videos of it. We're seeing the ships come in with nothing on them. That's the only thing that worries me there is that, the numbers that we keep seeing on these things are, to me, just numbers at this point, because it's more about, to me, the takeaway was Boeing they're going to buy $2 billion in Boeing planes they agreed to. That's what I want to see out of the deal. What did you actually get? Because what I'm worried about, quite honestly, for those that don't know, they talked about food there, and food actually that's a complete misnomer. There isn't a ton of people in the UK that want to buy US meats, and it's not because of the fact of quality or anything else. It's just there isn't a huge demand. What there is a demand is for low-cost beef here in the U.S. So here in Ohio, there's already been an uproar from the farmers that are worried about this first deal hurting ag, which is supposedly the backbone of what Trump's, supporters are.
If you've been over to the UK, Ireland, and you drive outside of the main city, it's
cows. Yeah, that's all there is. I mean, I love going to Ireland personally. I spend a lot of time there golfing, and that's what I mean is it's not, so that's the only thing that worries me too, is that, they pull out numbers, they say things, what I did like to hear was at least common sense. Yeah, Rolls-Royce is not opening up a factory in the US and going to produce them here. That was never on the book. So acknowledging some of that is good, where Toyota should, where, Nissan should, where we need those too. I thought some common sense came out of there, and that was a great line that they said is, they weren't coming to do that. We knew that, and that's why we carved it out, and we're going to buy, some Rolls-Royce engines that we need for because they're also in the airline business that we need, and they're going to buy all this Boeing. That's what I want to hear. That was the great stuff that I took out of yesterday.
Right. You want hard data, and the hard data out of that was Boeing. So, deal number one, Boeing. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I'm putting it on my checklist.
Yep.
Boeing good, agriculture not so good, because I do think we don't really want their meats in our market. It becomes a little bit of a problem there for our farmers. We know the whole thing had been, that's why our herds have been cut down, right? Because it was too cheap to get meat out of Brazil and other countries. Right. So we were seeing that move across, and there was just a big talk about how for the first time in years, American farmers were actually starting to increase herd size. And I love to see that again. I do want American beef personally. That's where I want locality. I just want locality. I don't think we need to ship that across nations.
Right. So, one deal done.
Which I love.
Let's see what's up on the agenda.
They claim, so I guess this weekend, I think you've already sort of stated it. I haven't really talked about it. We were really focused on crypto, let's face it, this morning with it taking off. But news this weekend, I think that we're going to see some great news when it comes to Besant and these other guys. There'll be talk at least of movement, and Lutnick has made it clear that maybe the next 5 deals get announced over the weekend. So I'm sort of holding him to that number. I want to see how we come on that. But I think it could get offset by the geopolitical bad news out of India and Pakistan. So I'm one of those guys that's going back to neutral today.
I'm not looking for any deals this weekend. I'm just looking for the fact that we're talking.
Yeah. And that's what I mean is that, when they get on although Lutnick did said 5 are coming, so did the president. They both made it clear that they've got the next 5 lined up. I do think there'll be smaller countries, and maybe they will. Again, I'm good with that. I don't need it to be China right now, but I want to see, do you get Indonesia done? Do you get Vietnam? Do you get any, let's just get them in, like UK. I'm great with that. And you called it out. I like to see the UK partner with us more than Europe. And that's what I take out of Boeing. They're not turning to Airbus. They're not turning to France. They're turning to the US and Boeing. That's a great line.
In that discussion, and, to the viewers, we're talking about a macro event here. But underlying this is looking at the dollar index. And the dollar index, as I've been saying, is based. And last week's close was 100.04. On Wednesday, we were around 99.50.
It looked ugly. I'm with you. I was looking at you Wednesday when you said you thought it was going to get there. And I'll be, oh, man. I think because it was right at that 99.15 that you warned about. If we fell below, look out below. So I definitely had my tinfoil hat on for the downside.
And if you look at today's high, it was around 180. And I've got a significant break here at 190. If we get through that, you're going to see the elevator ride down. Well, it's going to be an elevator ride back up. And again, geopolitics, world underweight dollars, and the dollar is basing and moving. And so are the rest of the U.S. markets. Everybody has flashed in gloom and doom. This is the worst thing that could happen in the world. I mean, if you just turn anything on, if you try to get some factual data, it's so hard to get. Howard, you nailed it. You want hard data. Okay, we got UK and Boeing. But look around the world and what's going on. And then let's all be a poker player. You've got a good hand, and everybody on the table is attempting to bluff. Now, you've got Canada, new prime minister, but unemployment went to 6.9% today from 6.7. Not a good economic system he's inherited from the long run of Trudeau. Okay, let's look at Europe. ECB Rain says disinflation is on track. However, growth is suddenly on our mirror and is declining. So that's Bank of England. Governor Bailey reiterated Friday their commitment to 2% on inflation is unwavering. Meanwhile, their economy is tipping down. So,
but at least these other countries are lowering rates.
And lowering rates, exactly, which is leaving just another ingredient out there. As much as I think the Fed is just, sorry, I'll make it one comment today. They're lost.
Yeah.
But They're leaving the dollar in a high interest rate stance versus the rest. We're looking at the euro. The euro is 53% of the dollar index. And the euro is, hey, inflation? No. That's we're looking, disinflation is well entrenched. Growth is suddenly cratering. So you can see everybody switching, but we're back at the poker table. The U.S. economy, look at the earnings results. I mean, the earnings have not been bad at all.
No, well, yeah. Again, earnings have been good. A lot of it, again, we'll see how that turns around in this next quarter. But I'm with you. The earnings have been very good, and I said that.
Again, Howard, I emphasize this with the world underweight U.S.
Right, absolutely. It's holding up. It's doing what it needed to do to show that we're still the king of markets.
And then you look at all your headlines. The world is moving away from the dollar. The dollar still takes care of well over 50% of every single transaction in the world. And if you
I'd
look
argue much higher, because you don't take into account stable coins, which are all U.S. denominated. You know what I mean? It's all that crypto that's done with stable coins, so it's even bigger.
Right. And
hey, your boy's talking right now. Goolsey says, wages are keeping pace. That's why inflation is, is still on the front. That just came across. I wasn't like I was trying to zap you here, because I know you like him. But that literally just came across Quasar Markets Institutional News.
I like Goolsby, and he's a solid guy.
Yep.
And he's bringing up, what's the matter with the people earning a little bit more money?
Right. And inflation, this goes to what we've been talking about. This is why I think we both like him, is he's saying, hey, listen, inflation can be 2.4. It can be 2.5 if wages keep up with it. What's wrong with that? That promotes growth. I'm a firm believer in that, right?
And remember, the 9% inflation that we had, that we've attacked with higher interest rate, that's not gone away. It's not like all of a sudden that's going to go back down. No, that's here. It's baked into everything. So wages need to catch up with that, and the people need to feel good about. And I think they're realizing, and I think that there will be a growing chorus. My view was the Fed should have lowered, but now the next move, they're going to have to lower 0.5%, because they're creating a problem which is well out of their control. And they are yet again talking. If we look at what Barkin said, Kugler said today on TV, she said policy rate is currently moderately restrictive, and added it makes sense to maintain it. Okay, listen, the Fed loves to do this. Inflation is transient. Now it's going to be moderately restrictive. They're just going to go right to the bottom of the ocean with these around. And, it's a ball and chain, not a good thing. You've got to be flexible if you're going to run the monetary system. And that's what we've finally seen out of the ECB. They've pivoted and gone into that. We still don't see it out of the UK. So anyway, that's my span, everything on. All the central banks meetings are now ahead of us. We're done right now. I'm watching carefully, though. Canada, the Canadian dollar has jumped up today, and I think
almost 140 here.
Yeah, rightfully so. I'm looking for a target in Canada around 141, 141 and a half. You've got their financial stability report that's just come out. A trade war with the United States threatens the Canadian economy and poses risk to their stability. Watch how fast we get that agreement. Mexico, our largest trading partner. Canada, Mexico is my 1-2 punch. That's what I want to see. I would love to see that sooner than later. China then comes under them, because I'm really not concerned about China. China is cratering. They're losing jobs.
Right. And I agree with that. China's going to have to come to the table at some point. Whether or not
and they're not even reporting all the statistics anymore.
They don't report anything. Oh, you weren't. I don't think you were watching last week. I went through the amount of items that they no longer talk about. I actually did it. I went down the chat GPT with that. It's amazing. They report literally nothing anymore.
Yeah. So all these things, are telling me, as the poker table, the United States is sitting there with a pair of aces, and an ace is coming down in the bluff. So I mean, it's looking good. And the rest of the world, while everybody is using the PR and saying we're not going to negotiate and blah blah blah, it's in everybody's interest to negotiate. Look at the trade figure from China today. $96.2 billion trade surplus for the month of April. Coming off of March is $102.5 billion. Come on. I mean, you can't be running $100 billion surplus a month with the rest of the world before somebody says, hello, can we get a little bit of balance here? So I think that the dollar index, I think that the world is underweight the US. I think next week, I don't know. It's kind of that middle of May. I've been talking end of May, June, where my turnaround happens. So I don't want to jump out in front of myself. I will say that next week I am expecting some sort of negative to come back into the marketplace.
Right. And that's all I was going to point out is, again, I don't see a V, I see a U. Personally, when it comes to the recovery. And that's the one thing that I've been keeping, sort of calmer heads about is don't get nervous that you're missing it and jump in here. Don't be chasing today when everything's up. Don't, I'm going to say it again. Do not buy Bitcoin today at 103,700.
And the most positive sign that you can see for the sustained recovery that I am looking for as this year unfolds is a down move, which we've seen, then across the bottom and settling a bottom. Now,
and that's what I haven't seen yet. I need to see that settling. I'm with you. I think now we haven't that. We've been Bart Simpson to the top of Bart Simpson's head, as opposed to that. Like we want to see calm seas, right? Like you always like to use the boats,
right? But I've got a calm base. Now I have a move up. I want another calm base. Right. I don't want to see spikes. What I want to see is a staircase up. Sideways, up, sideways.
Absolutely, because we got to rediscover. We need to get price discovery back into the mix, and we need to get supports to come back in, right? Because that's what I've seen still is the resistance are still there. Is right. Again, we're talking with Steve this morning. I'm Max 7. I've got them. It's all right off the top of my head. It's the 118 on Nvidia right now, 118, 118.50. It can't hold above it. It just gets to it, spikes up to it, spikes back down. I want to see it hit that 118. And just hold 118. I don't want to. It doesn't have to go to 120. Just hold 118. The same thing. Apple. Can you hold 200 for an extended period? There's some pretty big, nice round numbers that give you some good sense. The same thing. On the Qs, can it? This 490, 492 areas really become tough. Can it get above 500? Because it break above 500 and 500 turns into support. Look out. Above. It's just going to take off.
Right. You have to have a thesis, as Steve always says. And if your thesis is that where will we be in 2 years' time, my take would be the levels that we have seen and the levels that we're at will not be seen again in the 2-year period. I'm always one that looks at the glass as half full. I think that while this has been disruptive to the financial markets, it will settle out and watch the price. The price will tell you exactly all you need to know. Don't look for the spikes. If you see spikes, that's when your contrarian trading kind of works a little bit better. But longer term, these are opportunities to build your long-term type portfolio. So, I thought it was interesting. Bank of England lowered rates 0.25%. However, 2 members actually said we don't want to lower. So the Bank of England reluctantly is lowering rates, while the Fed is standing there still holding on to moderately restrictive. And they're boxing themselves into a hole. I think what you're going to see in the U.S. is if they get all this savings from Doge, if they get this savings from the tariffs, I wouldn't be one bit surprised to see fiscal stimulus come in the form of a tax rebate to people, and they're going to end run the Fed. So anyway, I think it's
you're definitely a glass half full guy.
Yeah. But watch ourselves. By the way, that tariff money that, according to AI and plugging it in, it's raised $69 billion so far with the latest data in May.
And what's our daily spend on our interest rate?
Yeah, I know. There you go. I mean, okay, it's something.
That's all. Again, I'm a glass half full and empty guy, as you know,
Yep.
Steve. I am that moderate in the middle that tries to look at it and break it down from both sides. What do
Well,
numbers mean? Do they matter? Do they not matter? Because Main Street media will throw so much at us there, and it does. It just concerns me.
yep.
I just like to look a little deeper under. I'm one of those guys that likes to tinker under the hood, so to speak, and see what's
And likewise, Howard, the both of us are data driven. I watch price. Price to me tells me everything. So that's what I'm watching. It's going to be an interesting weekend. I think risk is very evenly, based here. I think right now we're probably setting ourselves up for a bit of disappointment. I would love to see the positives this weekend, but based on what we've experienced in the month of April, I've got I'm ready to jump.
Yeah, I'm ready to dive for cover because I could see, again, I would say that news and talk that, it's going well over in Geneva would be positive, but all it takes is one tweet of a pissed off president and all of the good work that maybe the Secretary Treasury and everybody has worked on for, 48, 72 hours will get undone in a competitive tweet between the two leaders of those countries. So I think it's going to be interesting. Grab your popcorn for sure. Anything you're looking at on the any of the peerings in general that you're looking more at? I've noticed the pretty big move down on the yen today.
Well, I was going to say, I watched the yen. Yen is where the hot money sits, right? Yen is a safe haven currency. So it was obvious the yen appreciated versus the dollar, and we've seen this very sharp move down. However, in Japan, economic weakness is suddenly coming in after this little growth spurt. Number two, you've got Japan not moving on rates and saying, you know what, we're kind of happy where we're at. The market had built up a lot of bullishness on the yen, being long yen, short the US, on the fact that we were going to see successive rate hikes in Japan. That hasn't materialized.
Right.
And the world is into the safe haven. That's kind of what we call the Roach Motel. You get in, but you can't get out. And if you see the moves right here, right now I see dollar yen around the 145.10 level. Around 10. And I think what we have here is a break of this level. Last week's close was 144.95. If we can maintain a north of that level, we're setting up successive highs. This will be the fourth weekly high. And I think you're targeting a significantly higher 148 level in the yen.
Okay, well, there you go. I was going to ask, can it break that? Could it break through? You can see, I'm a big linear regression guy, and it's been stuck at the top of this linear regression a few different times, unable to break through and sort of change that tide. To me, linear regression is watching the boat on the ocean turn around, like you've talked about, or the boat in the lake, because it starts to bottom, it starts to level out. You start to see the waves, so to speak, catch in, and it looks like it wants to, but it hasn't been able to get across that. Do you think? So you're thinking we might be able to see that upside here? I'd love that. That would be great to see.
Back up to that those tops that you have on the left there. I think that comes in around the 148 level, down a little bit lower. Most recent highs.
Oh, over here? Yeah, right. 148, absolutely.
That's it. That's where I would look for the retesting. You always look at prices where it consolidates, and a very simple analysis for the viewers. Buyers and sellers battle it out, and then it breaks. One side wins, one side loses. When you revisit that level, it always acts as support or resistance. So
the market has long memories, we like to say, when it comes to price. You can look back at certain stocks that haven't touched a price in 7 years, and when they do, it still has that same reaction at those same levels.
Right.
So there's always a long memory. People remember their mistakes, and they remember their wins, right? Just as equally when it comes to that.
Exactly. And what we're talking about here is money, and money moves first. So I leave you with 2 points for the weekend. One, geopolitics is on the rise, and the world is underweight dollars. So that right there is a very toxic mix to the equation. And the second thing, out of the blue, Made in the USA, Pope Leo. What the heck? Who expected that?
Yeah,
So
my biggest takeaway is that the people at the two Jesuit Division I schools are very angry. I bet Notre Dame and Boston College, as a lifelong Boston College fan who has two generations above them who went there. Those two Jesuit universities feel that they are the popes of the U.S. world. To see Villanova get this win, probably not in their. I can only imagine what's happening on Chestnut Hill and in South Bend right now.
This could have big implications for the New York Knicks in the playoffs.
Hey! Don't be starting to brag yet, buddy. We're not done yet.
All right, so there you go. I mean, I look for all sorts of signs in the currency world. You're a macro trader. You look at everything, and suddenly the Pope is a U.S. I don't know. That could be another factor.
That one I don't think anybody had on their bingo card.
No.
I will. Little story for you there, Mr. Knicks fan. Jalen Brunson's dad and I played basketball together on a daily basis growing up. Eric Brunson from Salem, Mass. The city that I grew up next to. We fought it out for years together. He was obviously a little better, went on to play in the NBA after playing at Temple. But the Brunsons are good family friends.
That's amazing. Wow, very good. And, as my father would always say, who knew?
Just that one. You weren't expecting that from a Greenberg, were you? But yeah.
You weren't. And here the Knicks are up 2-0 on the Celtics. I mean, come on. I didn't see that.
World's upside down. Yeah, man, I'm not too happy with it. We'll see. Jaylen Brown's got to take control and take that ball out of Tatum's hand. That's how I'm going to end it today, Mr. Flanagan.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us. Keep tuned this weekend, everybody. It's going to be fun to watch these geopolitical things play out. From Quasar Markets Live, everybody have a great weekend.